Welcome to Saving Throws, the only podcast where we all look suspiciously like the milkman. My name's Harry, and I've just paid off my mortgage on Urza's Tower.
My name's Kingsley, and I sold my soul to a talking dog for spell slots.
My name's Ali, and I am that talking dog.
Wait, for real?
Bork, bork, motherfucker.
Oh, shit, man.
Oh, no.
Well, fellas, I'm sure we're all literate. At least I hope we all are. Otherwise, someone's been lying.
Oops.
I'm sure you read that lovely little comment we got from sweet boy Quinn, who requested that we talk about some of our favorite underrated spells from D&D, some of our favorite spell combos, and things along that line. Fun real life lore. If you didn't know, you can actually comment on some of our posts and let us know what you would like us to talk about, because we are rapidly running out of content. I'm just kidding. We're absolutely fine. But if you do want to hear us talk about anything in specific, from Magic to D&D to if you want to have an hour-long talk with Ali about Arc 2, we're also open to that.
Or lore in any format, because I am obscenely addicted to lore of any format.
We're all lore whores here at Saving Throws, and we're not ashamed of that. Harry, I know you're a little spell boy. Do you want to take us away with this one? Because I know as soon as we saw that comment, you got very excited, and I know you've got some great spells stocked up or even prepared right now that you want to sling our way.
Oh, I mean, I'm just a little spell boy, baby. You don't even know the half of it. I have books on books on books about how to move my hands in fun ways and make spells come out of them. Anyway,
Every episode we've had has started with something that I'm insert something boy from you two. Is that an English thing that as a Scotsman, I'm missing out on?
I'm a little scramble boy. I'm rowdy. I'm greasy. I'm ready to go.
I'm sorry. See, Quinn, you did this. Quinn, you picked this subject when you
bro.
commented on our Facebook post, my friend.
Yeah, this is all Quinn's fault and not my fault at all.
How it works,
this is
man.
Completely out of my hands. No, okay. So, our good friend Quinn, you know him, you love him, everyone knows Quinn. If you're listening to this, you definitely know Quinn, for sure. And that's a universal thing. No, our friend Quinn, he plays D&D with us sometimes, but he is a self-proclaimed sort of D&D novice. He's just dipping his toes in. He doesn't quite know how to sort of begin on this wonderful, beautiful journey that we all take. He asked us to maybe go through some spells, some overrated, underrated spells, some creative spell usage, because he said that the spell list is just so darn long. There's so many spells to choose from, and it's so hard to figure out from the bottom up, looking at all those spells, which one's good, which one's bad, what should I be choosing, what should I be taking? And this is going to be a little segment responding to that comment. I'm going to go right ahead and jump on into this, but you guys feel free to chime in with whatever thoughts you might have. So, first off, let me just lay some groundwork for you guys. If you are playing in a campaign and you want to use your spells creatively, that is entirely DM discretion. Like that entirely depends on the DM. What I say here, this will go for when I'm running a game, maybe for when Kingsley and Ali are running a game, what they have to say. But please do not take what we are saying as complete axiom. This is solely personal, like our own personal opinions on this. But please don't bring this to another game and be like, but those three guys on the podcast told me so. Like, no, please take this with a grain of salt, but we're going to try and keep things as entertaining and educational as possible. But we'll try. We're going to try our best, because that's all you can do in this dog-eat-dog world.
Look, don't come for me like that. Quick side note, I used to think it was dog-eat-dog, not dog-eat-dog, because it's a rough life.
Yeah, true.
This is why you sold your soul to a dog for spell slot.
I did, and it was worth it.
Who let that dog
sick.
out?
Doggy
all I got was Expeditious Retreat.
Nobody puts Warlock in a corner.
No.
Anyways, fully back on track. So creative spell usage, it's interesting because you kind of have two kind of schools about it, right? You would say there are people who are saying spells are rules as written, completely raw. You cannot do anything with a spell outside of what that thing would allow you. But there's kind of a few things where I differ because I do like to kind of follow the internal logic of what a spell should be able to do. First thing off the top of my head, I mean lightning bolt, right? Someone fires a lightning bolt in a river. It should hit people in the river, right? Am I weird for thinking that?
I like some kind of constitution check. Like coming into it from a kind of if you've played Baldur's Gate 3, if you watched the last video, you'll know this works. Baldur's Gate 3, anything like Divinity 2, where you have these terrains that are actually modified by spells. So like you said, if you're in water and you get hit by lightning, boy, that's gonna hurt. Yeah, I that logic tracks.
Well, no, I agree with that because it was in my own, actually one of my own campaigns, the druid of the party, I think it was the druid, maybe it was Quinn, not the person who left the comment, the character Quinn in my campaign. I think she cast lightning bolt in the water to kill these frog things in the Underdark, and there were some players in there, and I was like, okay, that's going to the players as well. But then to be fair, she did read she's like, but the spell says that it's a line. And I was like, yeah, but it's lightning, unfortunately. And obviously, you can't really make a deck save to avoid it in the water, so I made con saves, and if you pass the con save, you take half damage. But yeah, certain things like that. I mean, that's just me. I like a little bit of realism in my campaign, you know, with dragons and monsters and fantasy creatures. I like a little bit of realism. It makes it more fun for me. And some of the players even said that themselves. And yeah, why shouldn't a lightning bolt that hits the water not conduct and hit other people in there? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Just makes sense. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh no, I was just going to say lightning bolt is one good example, but I'm sure you've got a whole little spell book more.
Oh, I got a list, baby! I got a list!
Baby!
I got a full list, because you know your boy is prepared. No, so, like, I've got Lightning Bolt down. Obviously, Lightning Bolt is a pretty easy thing to understand, because it's like, hey, I want to use this spell in a way that is not necessarily how it is written, but I would like it to do a different thing. And as long as that you're applying those rules logically, it could be very easily just like an Arcana check. And for people like Quinn who are watching this who are like, oh, how do I know when this is applicable? Like, think about logically what the spell is doing and be like, is there a way that I can twist this? Is there a way that I can make this do something for me that is still within the realm of possibility? Another thing that we may have all encountered as DMs, create and destroy water. What denotes an open, empty container? Can a mouth be an open, empty container? These are all questions I have. Can you create water in someone's stomach and make them drown on land? Maybe.
Lungs? That's the classic one, isn't it? Lungs and brain, but a brain.
I have a thought on that as well, because, like, create and destroy water is a container, and you could probably argue that a body is not a container, or that it is a container, because it contains a multiple number of things. Long story short, if a player says to me, can I create or destroy water in someone's lungs? I'm probably going to allow that, because again, I DM with Rule of Cool, and I think that would be metal for someone to be like, can I create water in their lungs and drown them? You fucking can now. Like, why not?
That's sick as hell.
Even a small thing, like, again, not the person, my player, Quinn, Anne, I love you, babe, if you're listening, she said in the, because before my campaign started, I ran everyone through a prequel, a solo prequel, because my campaign started off as a level 1, but the official campaign when everyone met, they were all level 3, but I leveled them from 1 to 3 in little prequel sessions. And as she said to me, could I use Produce Flame to just hold it in my hands as a light source? I was like, that's a great question. That's so great. I love rewarding creativity with DM inspiration or advantage if someone's really creative. That's a great idea, yeah. I mean, you're a mage who's trained in the arts of magic, and if you can launch fire from your hands to hit a target or create a massive explosion to hit multiple enemies like Fireball, why couldn't you hold a tiny flame in your hand to give off light? Obviously, I'm not going to say it's bright light, but I'd treat it like a campfire or a torch, dim light. And I thought, that's a great use of that. And it's something I even took from that, from being a DM to one of my players with that idea, to when I play it with any spellcaster, if I'm a human, or if it's even dark in there, I'll say to the DM, can I use fire in my hands to create a light source? Because if I can do all this with fire, why can't I just control a flame? And I thought it was really creative, even for something as small as, I'm going to take a spell used for damaging and just use it as a utility spell now to shed light in this place. I thought that was a great idea. And even something little like that, you can get a lot of use out of a spell that's a basic cantrip.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things as well, for people who are like, what are good spells? Like, obviously, all spells are situational. Maybe not all
Exactly.
spells. Fireball can open a door just as easily as it can kill a bunch of people. That's a
Oh my
fact. That's a
god.
full fact. But you got to know kind of the difference between your utility spells and your combat spells and your, I mean, kind of any spells that fall in between. Something like knock. You know, knock, for instance, is not going to be a very useful combat spell unless you use it creatively. But looking at the wording of knock, can't think of any specific way that could be used outside of a utility scenario. So it's looking at your spells that you either have prepared, known, or if you're a wizard, in your tiny little spell book, and just saying, what situations do I think I'm going up against? What kind of character am I? And what kind of cool, flavorful combos can I get out of these if I use them all correctly?
And that's the thing. If you're a wizard in D&D, you kind of got easy mode on. And I'm not saying as in you'll find the game really easy. You can die from like anything critting you pretty much. I'm saying as in most spellcasters, like sorcerers, warlocks, almost every spellcasting class, they pick their spells for their level, and that's them. Wizards can swap in spells out because they get their spells for their level, but they've got a spell book, and they can also learn spells from other wizards. Or they can buy scrolls, and if they have the ink and the magical ink for it and the gold, they can copy it into their spell book. So yeah, you only have, say you're low level, you get 8 spells prepared for the day. You can have 14 to 15 spells in your spell book, even higher. And a good thing about wizard is, if you meet another wizard in your campaign who is a much higher level than you, they can teach you a much higher level spell, and you can learn that. Yeah, you can't use it until you're that level, but that's automatically a spell you're going to already have. And when you get pick your 2 spells per level, you'd have to pick that one. You could be a level 3 wizard, and you could learn Teleportation Circle, and then when you hit the appropriate level, you have that free to use. Unlike most classes, they pick their spell for the level, and that's them. That is their spells going forward. I know druids can prepare them as well. But wizards are very lucky in that they have they have infinite spells as long as they are spells in their class. Wizards have almost infinite spells they can learn, whereas other spellcasting classes are very limited.
Yeah. Quick thing on that. Another thing about being a new player, I guess we're kind of gearing ourselves towards, we have a lot of experienced DMs who do listen, but also people who just play and maybe want to DM a little bit, or people who are just very new players. Figuring out whether your class, your spellcasting class is unknown, whether your spells are known to you and you can only change out spells every level and you can only change out one level spell, or whether you're prepped is quite important. So I think every spellcaster apart from cleric, druid, and paladin have known spells, and they are, once you have those spells prepared and stocked, those are the spells you have, and you can only change out one per level. But anyone feel free to get at me in the comments. Either you two, if you want to attack me for that right now, live on air.
Well, warlocks can unlearn a spell and learn a different spell at any point. And they get a level up. But
that's what I'm saying. That's known casters.
Oh, sorry, I missed just say warlock. That is my bad then.
Oh, fully. My bad.
And another thing for spells, it also could depend on the character. I mean, this is going to become like my regular segue in these shows because it has every episode we've done so far. Is I'm like, well, tie it back to RP, but that's kind of true. For example, my first ever wizard, a character called Xander Storm. He is his father was a war mage. He was known as the Lightning Mage, and he was feared. And my character went to kind of follow in those footsteps. As a book nerd, kind of leans more to the utility side. So when I could have took like Fireball and these amazing, really cool damaging spells, I took things like Golden's Tower and Lumen's Tiny Hut, things like that, because I was like, Xander's mind would be more, this is useful when we're out traveling than fighting. So the spells you kind of deem worthy could also depend on your character, the character that you submitted.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Oh, sorry, there's something, Harry, there's something poking out of your pocket, right? Sorry, do you mind if I reach in and just grab that?
Oh, yeah, go ahead, man, go ahead.
Oh, oh my god, wow, it's a top 5 list. You want to read that out for me?
Oh, yeah, a little top 5 list. No, yeah, okay.
1 in 5 mages just rolled their eyes.
We're fully in different cities. There's no way I can see his pockets.
Fully several miles away from each other, as you all should be.
Yes.
There's a pandemic going on. So, I'm gonna go in and out of these two things that we were talking about. Talking about creative spell use, but also talking about some of my favorite spells and some of my least favorite spells, just mechanically from a standpoint of like, you shouldn't be taking the spell unless you want to do this, stuff like that. Our good friend Quinn. We love Quinn. You love Quinn, I love Quinn, we all love Quinn.
We do.
He wants to know some spells that he can use just reliably, spells that we know are good and solid. So, starting from the top of my list, I would say, if you are playing a cleric or a druid, and you don't pick guidance or bless, either of these work, because they're both really good. If you don't pick guidance or bless, you're doing something wrong, because that is okay. I'm not trying to say that if you don't pick this, you're playing the class wrong. It's a really good spell, all right? It's a really, really good spell. Guidance and Bless is so awesome, so incredibly valuable to the team, because as a cleric and a druid, you can now be supplementing your allies in pretty much anything, right? I mean, guidance, you're gonna make a roll, right? You're playing D&D, you're gonna make a roll. So having guidance in your back pocket is extremely useful. You can add that to what? It's saving throws, right? I might be fucking messing this up.
It's saving throws. Yeah, you get a +4.
That's the name of the podcast.
Just a quick thought on that, or a quick fix. I think druids and clerics get guidance. I think paladins may as well. I'm not entirely sure, but I know for maybe. Bless, it's just clerics and paladins.
I mean,
I don't think druids get
anyone
bless.
can take guidance if you take
magic
spell
initiate.
sniper. Yeah, magic initiate or
Spell sniper. Spell sniper shooting people down with a touch spell.
Oh wait, maybe not.
With guidance.
No, because I was trying to think what my yeah, but I think you're right. I was trying to think what my Sorlock took, and he may have got it through his tome. You get the Warlocks have. My Sorlock has it, but yeah, I think it maybe Mage Initiate. You can pick any class and take a couple cantrips from that, and I took guidance as one of them. I mean, actually, I think Spell Sniper as well, because Spell Sniper lets you pick 2 cantrips in a spell, so it actually might be that as well. I could be wrong. I'm drawing a blank right now, but Mage Initiate definitely for 1. Because
I can 5e ref. I can 5e ref it right now.
I don't have Mage Initiate with Zane, so it must be Spell Sniper, because I took Spell Sniper with Zane. Also could be the Pack of the Tome for Warlocks. I think you get to pick 3 cantrips from any class. But yeah, I mean, technically you're right, Druids and Clerics can cast Guidance and Bless. But yeah, just a little fun bit out there that most classes, if you want to waste a feat or multi-class, you can get Guidance as well.
So Spell Sniper gives you a cantrip from Bard, Cleric, Druid, Sorcerer, Warlock, or Wizard.
Ah, there you go. So I was right then. Nice.
It also has to be a spell. This is would be a funny situation for guidance, but it has to be a spell that requires an attack roll. So can you imagine a fucking druid coming in, thwacking someone over the head, and immediately you feel guidance from a divine source?
Yeah, I can. Cricket doing that to Matt.
Yeah.
The druid comes in and smacks you over the head and goes, "I love you!"
Yeah.
Get your head in the game! You need to be more guided! Anyway, here's guidance. Smack in the head.
Guidance and Bless are 2 beautiful spells. Guidance obviously being the cantrip, Bless being the 1st level spell.
Yeah, I believe so.
I think Bless allows you to bless 3 creatures within 30 feet. And they get a plus
level.
They get a plus D4, basically. Not a +4, a plus D4, which is the fun little pyramid-shaped dice.
You love to see it.
You do love to see it. And it's great. Another little counterbalance there is if you've got Bless, why not consider later on taking Bane?
Bane is amazing. And also with Bless, you can increase the amount of targets you're targeting at higher levels. So say you got a pretty big adventuring party, if you want to burn a higher level spell slot, you can pretty much affect the whole party and they will get a D4 to all of their rolls.
Yeah.
Once, I think. Once. No, actually, it's concentration, isn't it? It's concentration.
Yeah. One thing as a new player, obviously, to be aware of is when you're picking your class, think very much about what kind of spellcasting you want to do. Because for druids and clerics as well, you'll find that a lot of your spells are actually concentration spells, which for veterans, I'm sorry we have to go through this again, but I'm sure you want to hear my sweet little dulcet tones explain it. Concentration basically means that you can only have that one spell, one concentration spell running at a time. You can cast other leveled spells, but you cannot cast another concentration spell without cancelling that other concentration. You also have to roll a Constitution saving throw whenever you take damage. So that is 10 plus half the damage rounded down. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it does.
No one in the audience can respond to me, but as long as that makes sense.
I mean, unless you're a nice DM, I mean, it depends on the size of the group. I will do like 8 plus half the damage, but with my 9-player party, I do 10 plus half the damage because there's only so many bones you can throw.
I'm not too sure. It might work the same as figuring out DCs for spellcasting and stuff. But again, Bane, Bless, Guidance, very good spells. I think they may both be concentration, but amazing things to have in your arsenal.
Bless is concentration. I think Guidance is not.
Oh.
No. Guidance is concentration. Sorry,
Bane
I fully tell a lie.
They're both
concentration.
used a shit ton of my campaign.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. It's concentration. Kingsley, would you like to give us a spell, one of your favorite spells from your list that I found in your pocket?
Oh my god, get out of there! How are you even going to stop that?
I'm sorry!
I could go the super easy route and just be like, oh, obviously Fireball. But I'm not going to.
It's a good spell.
I'm going to talk about a spell that, as a DM, might sometimes be a very annoying spell. As a player, might sometimes situationally be a very annoying spell to have stalked and be like, I'm in the wrong place to use this. That's right, baby. We're talking about the 3rd level spell, Plant Growth. Now, stop. Don't look at me like that, little ones. I know, you're saying, whoa, why am I going to take Plant Growth over Conjure Woodland Beasts or Call Lightning? Here's why. Sometimes you as a druid, and I'm looking at you, little one, you need to step up and realize that it's not just about damage, it's not just about healing, someone has to do the control as well. Plant growth allows you to grow all of the plants in the area, I think at 100-foot sphere.
Radius. 100-foot radius.
100-foot radius? So what? 100-foot radius. Yeah. This spell gets better. That is 200 feet diameter. That's how circles work.
So sick.
And it basically creates difficult terrain. I think for every 1 foot they move, it means that they move effectively 4 foot. No, sorry, for
That's
every...
exactly right.
Yeah. They're spending 4 feet of movement for every 1 foot they move. When you're dealing with big hordes of enemies and you need to take some pressure off of your martial characters, the people you're playing with, that is a great synergistic spell to use. The one time it becomes very annoying is when you're in a campaign such as Dark Sun, if anyone here has played Dark Sun. I haven't, but I know it's very post-apocalyptic and scary, not a lot of plants. Or a sci-fi campaign, or you're in a castle and there aren't many plants, right? That's when you'll kick yourself and be like, oh god, I should have used Call Lightning. But then again, if you read Call Lightning, you can't summon Call Lightning inside of a small room. It just doesn't work like that, honey. Plant Growth, great spell. I always stalk it because sometimes you get some really nice flavor out of it. For instance, I have a druid that does a lot of herbalism, and sometimes when I'm out of regents, I will literally just spend 8 hours and grow some more regents that I need for my alchemy. It's a great utility spell, great control spell. A lot of fun to play as well.
Absolutely. Allie, would you like to give us one of your favorite spells? Spells that you like to see played as a DM, or spells that you like to stock as a player?
I mean, as a DM, there's a spell I both love and despise. And that is a spell I'd never heard of, because again, I was very new to DMing when I first started. There's a spell called Chaos Bolt for the sorcerers.
Oh.
You roll the damage type is picked by the numbers you roll on your damage dice. And if you roll the same number, the spell will leap to another enemy. And if that happens again, it'll do it again. And if you, by some miracle of the gods, manage to roll the same damage there multiple times, you're from a first level spell, you're getting like 8 or 9 attacks. Now I'm only saying 8 or 9 if you get insanely lucky. Some majority will get a second attack off it. I've seen a third and fourth happen at my table with the dice rolled in front of me. But as a player, my one of my personal favorite spells, fun enough, is the spell Identify for the wizards. Identify is a great spell. Not all great spells are gauged by how much damage or how many dice you roll. Identify is amazing because you can burn a spell slot and cast it, or you can spend 10 minutes in ritual cast it for free, which means your spell slot is not used. You can identify any object, item, anything that isn't a person, and you will get everything about that. You will get what it is, what it does. So, say I want to identify this chest. You find if it's trapped, if it's magical, whatever it is. Say you're given an item. Because I know this part depends on the DM. Some DMs will just hand a player an item and go, "This is what it is. This is a sword of smiting, a fabled sword. Does this, this, and this." But usually the DM's going to be like, "You're going to have to. You don't know what it does. It's a sword or a weapon or whatever the item is. You don't know what it does. You have to get to a merchant or work it or a mage to get them to identify it essentially. But the spell Identify can help you work out what the item is. It can be great for doing Arcana checks. When you identify anything, it will tell you everything on what it is. And I think for a first level spell, that is something a wizard should always take. One, because you can ritual cast it, and two, because it is so much use from identifying a trap, is it magical or not, what would happen, identifying items that your party find. If someone offers you a drink, and if it's a social part, like, hey, have a drink in the campaign, you can quickly identify and see if it's poisoned or not. Like, Identify just has so much utility not to take, but I do think that's a wizard only spell.
Yeah, that makes sense, because they're like an intelligence class. They usually are proficient in Arcana. I've yet to see a wizard who isn't. Like, it makes sense that a wizard would be able to be like, this is that, or maybe Artificer. I don't know if Artificer gets an Identify.
Might do. I've not played Artificer.
They do.
Yeah, they're an intelligence. They're the only other intelligence.
And it would make sense because if you want to identify something so you can make it yourself, work out the inner workings of it. But Identify. Yeah. I mean, I almost picked Find Familiar, and I'm not going to do the cheaty thing and then talk about Find Familiar because that means I got 2 picks. No, I almost picked that because it's got so much versatility, but no, I had to pick Identify. There is just so much use out of a first level spell that you can cast infinitely for free if you want to ritual cast it.
Yeah, it's a good downtime spell as well.
It's a great downtime spell.
Give a wizard, give a bard, give an artificer a special item that they don't know anything about. Their downtime activity can literally be, I want to learn more about this. Take it to someone who knows Identify. You can make a little scene out of it, baby. It'll be so good.
Another thing is, though, I like a word of caution. If you do play a wizard and you pick Identify and your DM doesn't just hand you things, be prepared to be given a shit ton of items. Literally, say if there's 6 people in your campaign and everyone finds an item in the dungeon, they're probably going to give them all to you and be like, identify them. You're spending your downtime spending all your ritual casts of all the items you've been given, like the massive stockpile of items to work out what they do and tell the party what they are.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but is Identify as a ritual cast, is that 10 minutes or is it an hour?
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
10 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, look, if you are... if you don't want to waste a spell slot and you just want to real quick figure out what something is, like Harry said, make a little scene out of it. If you are a DM, me and my first mate, as a pirate captain in Ali's campaign, we had a little scene of just going through all of the things that we captured from a Kraken, and it was good fun to run as a scene. But as a player, it's just one of those things that is very versatile, like Ali and Harry are saying. It's just a great spell to have on deck.
Absolutely. I'm gonna flip the script on you guys a little bit,
Oh.
I'm gonna keep it a little spicy. We've done our favorite spells we like to use. What's your least favorite spell? Now this is something that's actually probably more important than knowing what spells are great, because in a lot of situations, a bunch of spells can be really good. A lot of spells are extremely situational. A lot of spells have been designed to be the perfect foil to specific encounters, specific problems, events, so on and so forth. There are some spells that might try to trick you into choosing them because they are nefarious. Some spells are just not worth the hassle. And Kingsley, you can jump in, man.
I just want to strangle this one real quick. I can see it running across the ground right now. I know you guys haven't clocked it yet, but I'm going to jump in. I'm going to crush this little fucker where it is. True Strike. every D&D player knows that True Strike is just one of those spells, like Harry said, it tricks you into thinking it's very nice and very fun, and it's like, as a new player, you might be misconstrued because you don't truly understand the ramifications of the action economy quite yet, but trust me, after 3 or 4 combats, you will. True Strike is one of those cantrips that tricks you into wasting an entire action for the promise of advantage on your next attack. What? There are so many other spells out there that can give you advantage. I was literally talking to Harry about this just before we started this podcast, started recording this one. If you're a fighter, or if you have a fighter in your party, and you are a mage, or a mage is not the right word, if you're a wizard or any kind of spellcaster, just use one of your attacks to shove someone and knock them prone, and you have advantage, and so does everyone else. That is not a waste of a full action. That is just the usage of one attack action. And you can still attack after that. True Strike is, honestly, it needs to be rebalanced. And I know a lot of people talk about rebalancing it, but it's just one of those little cantrips that I'm just like, why are you here? Stop tricking people. Get out.
Why are you here? Get out of here. On the topic of rebalancing True Strike, I think that's a really interesting topic because there are a lot of DMs who will take a spell like True Strike and say, I want to make this viable. I want to make this useful. One thing that is really, really useful for True Strike, if you want to have your players use it, I always run True Strike as a bonus action. And that might just be me. But for anyone who's listening who doesn't know what a bonus action is, on your turn, you get an action, you get a movement, you get an object interaction. If you have something that can be used as a bonus action, you can use that as a bonus action. You get 1 on your turn. And giving that True Strike as a bonus action allows them to do a thing, to act, and then also True Strike, if they are so inclined to do so. Another situation where True Strike could be useful in its base form, say you're an arcane trickster who doesn't have a lot of ways to get advantage for that juicy sneak attack.
Yeah.
Maybe you're reliant on True Strike to get that advantage for your sneak attack because you have no other way of doing it. Now, of course, there are better ways of doing it, but that is certainly a viable option for an arcane trickster should they choose to go down that path.
Yeah. One of those options actually being one of the new, I'm looking at her right now, you gorgeous little queen, in the new book, Tasha's Cauldron of Everything. I think it's Hold Steady. It might be the name of the rogue feature, but it's basically that same thing, where if you just stay completely still for a round, you get advantage on your next attack. A great way of getting sneak attack.
Very, very cool. That's super sick. I actually didn't know that existed. I will have to go read Tasha's again.
Very overpowered.
Allie, do you have a spell that you hate? Just as a DM or a player? Just like either one of those?
As a DM... Revivify. No, I'm kidding. As a DM, I can certainly think of a few, but I'll speak of this as like a player, or just even, I guess, both, because it's both the same part of the game. Mordecai's Sword. What the fuck is that about? That is a 7th level spell. For those, again, obviously we keep saying for those because maybe our listeners are D&D players, but we cover gaming, we cover magic, we cover a lot of things, so we are not going to just presume everyone knows what it is and alienate our listeners. So for those who don't play D&D, there is cantrips, which are pretty okay, and then for spellcasters anyway, and then you've got your leveled spells, 1st to 9. And 9th level is the highest due to this magical god. But 9th level, and you only get 9th levels depending if you've multiclassed or not, you'll get them around about 16, 17. Mordecai's Sword's a 7th level spell that is bullshit. It's just not, and I'm not saying this because it's broken, because it's terrible. It's a 7th level spell, it costs an action to cast, it's a concentration spell, and you create a sword-shaped plane of force that hovers within a range. When the sword appears, you make a melee spell attack against a target of your choice within 5 feet of the sword. On a hit, the target takes 3d10 force damage. And then until your spell ends, you can move it with a bonus action, blah blah blah. 3d10 for a 7th level spell. 3rd level spell, Fireball, is 8d6. Even at a maximum, it's way better than the minimum there. And I just can't... why would you waste a seventh? Well, first of all, why would you waste one of your spells just picking this? And two, why would you waste? You only get one seventh level spell slot for per long rest. Why would you waste a seventh level spell to do 3d10 force damage? Eldritch Blast at that at the level you can cast seventh level, you can get Eldritch Blast as a cantrip, which does 3d10 force damage. And if you're a warlock, because other classes can take Eldritch Blast. If you're a Warlock and you take Agonizing Scorcher, you get a Charisma modifier to that, which means your cantrip, it'll be 3d10 plus 5, and that's plus 5 per hit. So it's actually 3d10 if it's at the one target, plus 15. Compared to a 7th level spell, which is just 3d10. What a waste of a spell.
Are we going to ignore the fact as well that this doesn't allow you to add any spellcasting modifier? Look,
no, nothing.
This is literally spiritual weapon, worst spiritual weapon for bards and wizards, right? Spiritual weapon is 1d8 plus your spellcasting mod as a bonus action, can also move 30 feet, right? And can make attacks as an action. So that means you can summon your spiritual weapon and make an attack on the same turn, right? Or you don't have to. But spiritual weapon, for every spell slot past third, you add an extra d8 on top. So even if you cast a 7th level spiritual weapon, that's 5d8 plus your spellcasting mod as a bonus action. What would you do to change? So I know Harry talked about how he would change True Strike. How would you change Mordekainen's sword?
Make it a level 2 spell.
Level 2.
If I had to actually change it in its parameter, I would have it be... I would first punch up those damage dice, like either make it 4d10 or 5d8, like swap something out of there. And I would let you add your spellcasting modifier. And I would let you... I guess the nice thing about this is you can use your bonus action to move up to 20 feet and make an attack against a creature, but even still, it's crap. I would let you do 4d10 plus your spellcasting modifier. I would maybe treat it like a smite. If you're going to burn a spell slot, you can increase the damage dice.
Mm-hmm. What's the duration on Mordekainen's sword?
Duration is 1 minute. So 10 rounds.
Yeah, I think it is.
10 rounds as a wizard, right? You've got a lot of spells that aren't... I'm literally just playing Asmodeus' advocate right here. I'm saying... what is a situation it would be good for you to take Mordekainen's sword in? Say you are a wizard, you've got a lot of spells that don't require concentration, you could be using Mordekainen's sword, and then is it a bonus action attack?
It's an
no,
action,
it isn't a
an
bonus
action to
action.
cast it, but after that, it's a bonus action to move up to 20 feet.
Yeah, it's weird because in the wording of the spell, it says, you can use a bonus action on each of your turns to move the sword up to 20 feet to a spot you can see and repeat this attack against the same creature. You make a melee spell attack.
When you first cast it. It's not.
So are you making a melee spell attack as a bonus action?
No,
on every one of your turns?
No, because yeah, pretty much. And if you're a wizard, your melee spell is not going to be that great.
No. So you could use that and mix it with some cantrips or something just to be doing extra damage per turn. Or maybe even with the new class, is it the Blade? It's not the Blade Singer.
It's the Blade Singer,
that is. Is it the Blade Slinger?
I think it's the Blade Singer.
Blade Singer is a
Blade
wizard
Singer.
class. What about it?
Okay, Blade Singer. If you're doing
Blade
something
Singer.
like that, flavor-wise, maybe, but there are better 7th level spells out there.
There's so many better options. I mean, like 3d10 force. So you're making a melee spell attack. Like, come on, like you're trying to break an AC with that. Like, again, I go back to Disintegrate, a 6th level spell. The modifier outperforms this spell in the first instance. Yes, after you've cast Disintegrate, it's done. But usually, if you're hitting someone with Disintegrate, it isn't getting back up. And the best thing with Disintegrate is, if it reduces a target to 0 hit points, they turn to ash. They're gone. They are broken down to the molecular level. Fireball, I think, would be better than this. Fireball at its base, without doing it at a higher level, basic 3rd level spell slot, which I'll have a few of them by the time you're 7th level. By the time you have 7th level spell casting, let me just clarify. Fireball's 8d6. That is immediately better than 3D. I just can't believe that. Like, if this was a lower level spell, I'd probably take it, to be honest. I'm very careful with what spells I pick. But the fact is, like, This is a 7th level spell. I am never picking this in a million years. I mean, I guess you could see the situation, because sometimes I think about, what if I get arrested? So I guess if you're in a prison cell, you could cast that in. But I would just instill cast Shadow Blade, because you can spawn that sword in and make a melee attack with that, and that's doing necrotic damage. I just don't, like, for all the things at 7th level, I don't think Mordekaiser's doing anything that would make it viable of taking. And don't get me wrong, see if there's someone listening and you have used this before in a campaign, or you have a creative way for it, please let us know in the comments. But I can say as a player and a DM, I do not see a use for this spell whatsoever, compared to other spells out there.
I think what I'm realizing now is that when you look at stuff like Fireball, Shadow Blade, and Disintegrate, what kind of damage does Disintegrate do? Is this
damage type?
Yeah, is it necrotic as well?
It's force, actually. Funnily enough, it's force.
Okay, because I was literally about to say the only reason you would pick this is because
it's force damage.
Yeah, force damage is literally the least resistible type of damage in the game. I can't think of a single creature right now that has a resistance, let alone immunity to force damage.
I don't think I can either. I think that's like kind of how force damage is designed, surely.
Yeah, exactly.
We want a damage type that cannot be resisted.
And the thing with Disintegrate is, if you're killed by Disintegrate, you can only come back with True Resurrection or a Wish spell. And this is 6th level. This is a level lower than Mordekaiser's sword.
Yeah. Moving away from that horrible spell.
Before we move on, I have one last thing to say on how I would fix Mordekainen's sword.
Yeah, give it to me.
Or whatever. I think Mordekainen's sword, I would choose it if it was a spell that started at a lower level and could be upcast to level 7.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
maybe not with
100%.
Maybe not with 3d10. Maybe make it like a 2nd level spell or a 3rd level spell. Maybe not 3d10 on the outset, 2d10 plus, I don't know, wisdom spellcasting modifier. And then you could upcast it to level 7. That would be cool. It could be casted at like a lower level. Maybe it scales with the amount of damage for each level. Maybe it doesn't require concentration or material components, or you can use a bonus action to cast it. Minor changes I could use.
Sorry, House.
No, go ahead, dude. I was pretty much done.
I had so much to say about this spell already, but just looking at it a little bit more, right? Lads, just throw some numbers out there. Give me a guess at what you think the material components for this spell cost.
What spell?
I mean...
Mordekainen's sword?
Mordekainen's sword. Oh, dude. My brain. So mushy. Smooth brain.
250 gold.
Fucking Christ!
So you need a miniature platinum sword with a grip and pommel of copper and zinc, worth 250 gold.
Also, bear in mind, platinum is the best currency in D&D. It's the highest currency. Like, it goes bronze, silver, I always say bronze is copper. Copper, silver, we don't talk about the other one, gold and platinum. I can't think of a campaign that uses the other option for currency. What is it? It's like Ethereum. I don't know a campaign that uses Ethereum at all.
I think it might be Electrum.
It's Electrum.
Ethereum.
No, it's Electrum. I don't know a single campaign that uses Electrum. I just use copper, silver, gold, and platinum. And the fact is, the components for this is a miniature platinum sword, and also the 250 gold part is like. There's not a reason to take 7th level, and if someone can post in the comments and give me an honest reason to take it and why it's good, and it makes sense, I will apologise, but as far as I'm concerned, this is the worst spell in D&D. Maybe not the worst, but it is up there, at least in the top 5 of worst spells in D&D 5e.
Yeah,
I can't believe how much I piled on True Strike without thinking about this spell.
Yeah, I almost picked Blade Ward, but no, this is the worst.
Take me away from the spell. Take me away from the spell.
Yeah, Harry, what is your opinion? One last thing.
No, not in this spell. On the next one, I'll do something a little spicy for you guys.
Ooh.
You know, because we're all about the flavor.
I got my milk on deck.
We've had True Strike, which is like a situational spell that is mostly bad, but can be good for specific characters with like a little bit of tweaking. We've got Mordekainen's Sword, which is just a god-awful spell. I mean, why would you take that? Unless you want to be cool as fuck. But there's other sword spells. Here is one that I'm going to come at you with a few angles. As a player, I love this spell. As a DM, I hate this spell, but for a few different reasons. And I hear the cries of the people listening to this already. And that spell is Prestidigitation.
Oh, as a player, I love that. To just become instantly clean. You would not think in D&D how many times you get dirty. And it was pointed by my other half that it only keeps you clean up until an hour. I just void that part. And because you guys could make the argument, I'll just cast it every hour. But no, use it once you're clean. But Prestidigitation, as a player, I love that spell. As a DM, I've not grown to hate it yet. There's a reason I know I could hate it. And I might not say why, because I know some of my players listen to this, and I don't want them having that much power.
I don't want to give them the ideas.
All I'll say is this. Prestidigitation is almost a free counter spell.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm not going to say how, because I know some of my players are listening, and I ain't giving you that much power. Yeah. They're probably opening D&D Beyond right now, and they're going to the spell, and they're reading it, combing through it like, how could this be used as a free counter spell? But if you're creative, it is a free infinite counter spell.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy.
As a
or dispel as well.
Cantrip. It's one of those spells that, because I know the exact reason. I know the exact reason why you hate it, because we've talked about this before. And wow, if you're coming into this fresh, if you're coming into this right now at like the hour mark, look, we all DM for each other. We all play with each other. It's a great time.
Harry is yet to DM for me, and one day he will.
I will.
But also, something like, if you're playing a very survival-based game, as a player, this could be very cool, because you can instantly warm or chill something. Like, up to a cubic foot, right?
Which
for
is
an hour.
pretty good. A cubic foot, isn't he small?
Mm-mm.
Yeah, just like a lot.
But if you can say to your DM, because this is how I would do it, right? It sounds horrible, but if you can grab a blanket or grab a hood and you can squish that into a cubic foot, right? That's possible. That is a possible thing you can do. If you heat that up and put that cloak on while you're out in Icewind Dale, right?
Yeah.
You're kind of vibing. You're straight up vibing. But as a DM, Prestidigitation can be such a tricky little motherfucker, because look, you can, sorry, I'm just reading the wording of the spell. You can create a magical trinket or an illusory image that can fit in your hand that lasts until the end of your next turn, right? Prestidigitation has a range of 10 feet. There is nowhere in the wording of this spell that says you cannot summon a small palm-sized ruby in someone's throat. Nowhere.
See, so, okay. Here's okay. So I'm gonna get on to why I don't like Prestidigitation as a spell, and that is the perfect exemplary reason for why this is a thing. So
I love that so much. Oh my god, I love that
baffles.
so much.
It baffles.
Can you imagine? Fuck, man.
I don't have to. I've done it.
I'm already thinking.
Yeah, he's literally done it. He did it to me. I literally have done this.
Like a big bad, you meet the big bad, you say to the DM, I'd like to walk up to him and bow. Get within 10 feet. Now I cast I fucking created Ruby, because I honestly, if a player had done that to me as a DM, like, if you're a player also, whatever reason a DM gives to not have, well, let me specify afterwards, but whatever bullshit a DM says, they're just railroading, because if you can't, like, say they're a human, or they're a humanoid race, and you create a diamond in their throat, if you do it to a dragon, they're easily going to swallow that. So let's just say logically, or for this argument, it's a humanoid. If you create a diamond or a ruby in their throat, they're dead. Like, what reason could you say to go, they get rid of it? Unless there's a spell that you could, like, teleport object. But that's like an instant kill.
It's not a concentration spell either. The duration of Prestidigitation is an hour.
Which is
Are you going to be able
rounds.
to not breathe for an hour?
So isn't that 100 rounds? 6 seconds a round in combat.
100 rounds.
100,
I think it is.
rounds.
I think it's somewhere close. It's at least it's long enough that it would be like it would take a while. It would take
because you're
it's
breathing.
long enough. It's long enough that you're not breathing, that you would die, right?
You're breathing.
So here's what I get to my.
You're breathing in D&D. Your
where-
con modifier times by 1.
Yeah, I think so.
And that's how many minutes it is.
So they get to the point, the issue with Prestidigitation. I love Prestidigitation. I take it every time I'm a spellcaster that can take Prestidigitation. It is by and large, one of my favorite spells. It's like an old childhood friend. I love it. I love to see it. I love to see people using it creatively. I have had some of the funniest moments playing D&D when the party wizard has just gone fucking apeshit and is like, I'm gonna do some weird shit with prestidigitation. Now, that being said, I feel like I have played in some campaigns where people have tried to finagle prestidigitation into something that it isn't, right? Like, when someone uses it, they create an instantaneous, harmless sensory effect, like a shower of sparks, a puff of wind, faint musical notes, or an odd odor. I've seen people try and use that, like, can I blind someone with that? And it's like, okay, you can't do that because it is a harmless sensory effect. Like, I see people try and twist it. I would say the reason why I find it hard to deal with, I don't dislike it, hard to deal with as a DM, is because it can be finagled into things that it might not necessarily be. Now, am I going to argue that putting a ruby in someone's throat is something that prestidigitation can't do? No, it probably can, right? It probably can put a ruby in someone's throat. Now, should you as a player do that every time you meet someone? Probably not. That would suck.
Quick question.
That would not be fun.
See if you create the ruby, could you sell that? Could you hand it over to someone?
Well, so that's exactly on the next phase of, like, there are so many things you can do with prestidigitation.
Because I'm now thinking I might just make a shit ton of rubies and sell them. Obviously, you can't go back to that
totally
vendor after that because they're going to disappear. But you could easily go to a merchant and make a shit ton of rubies.
Well,
yeah.
here's,
and I mean,
here's
you
the
can
thing.
do that.
I say Ruby as an example. I think the way Wizards of the Coast designed it is that I know when you're on D&D Beyond and stuff, and if you look in the player's guide or other things like that, there is usually a list of trinkets, right? A list of non-magical trinkets.
Yeah, exactly.
I think what they meant was you can summon a non-magical trinket like that. But then again, would a ruby amulet not be a non-magical trinket? Like,
motherfucker.
Like, here's the thing. I know for a fact, look, just at the beginning, if you, as a first-time DM, playing with veteran players, or even players who read really well, you're past your 5th grade reading, well done, proud of you, use the trinket list. That's a quick fix. Just use the trinket list and say, you can summon anything off of this trinket list. It can be palm-sized, but usually it's the size of this actual trinket. That's one way around it.
It's like to summon a palm-sized snow globe in his throat.
God.
It's fucked.
It's fucked up, man.
It's fucked up.
But I think there is a lot of stuff that you can do with prestidigitation. So I've talked about why I find it kind of like a tricky spell, and why, like, it can be kind of tricky to figure out where, like, the nuances of where it lies and, like, what it can actually do. There's a reason I love this spell, and it's because it can lead to some of the most creative forward thinking in your players. So I play a wizard. I don't know if anyone in this party is going to listen to this, but if you are, hello everybody. I play a wizard named Barry. He is been on the road for a super long time as a wizard, and someone asked me, how does he make money? And I was like, well, I've got prestidigitation. And I was like, he runs a wandering laundromat, and he cleans the clothes of the towns that he walks through. And it's like moments like that where it's like you can establish a tiny little in-joke with prestidigitation that becomes this, like, hilarious overarching thing for your character. He washes clothes on the weekends. He's a full level 6, level 7 wizard, and he's washing clothes on the side of the street. Or you could be a fucking bard. Do bards get... bards get prestidigitation. You could be a bard, and you could sell fancy wine to people, but it's just water. It's literally just water that you've prestidigitation into fancy wine. And you could serve fancy wine to people, and they would know nothing. Because by the end of the hour, the wine is gone.
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
man.
You could be
I went into this call as a somewhat educated D&D player and DM, and I'm going to pull some weird shit next time I play any of my wizards. Any of my wizards, I'm going to pull some weird shit, man. Xander and Crow, fucking to the DMs, Tom and Ann, I apologize. I'm going to pull some weird shit.
Do you want me to kill off one of your characters so you can just do this weird shit? No,
I love the only character you DM is Zahir, and I love Zahir.
let me roll some stuff real quick, and I'll kill off Zahir in a very humane way.
God. Oh no, that sucks. So okay, moving on for prestidigitation. I think it's had its time in the sun. I I would like to move into something so similar, kind of like an avenue. Creative spell use, very similar to this. Spells that work well together. 2 or 3 spells that can be cast at the same time by different players or by the same player. That work together extremely well. Now, before we get any further into this, I'd just like to shout out a supplement on DM's Guild. It's called Bigby's Handbook of Creative Spell Use. It is a phenomenal supplement, and it all works completely off of rules as written from the Player's Handbook, Monster Manual, DMG, whatever you want to do. It all comes from that. It's all core rules, and it is just one of the most interesting, one of the most informative D&D supplements that I have ever read. It really, really upped my game as a spellcaster. You can literally buy it in the DM's Guild right now. We'll post a link in the description of this book. Just a big shout out to Justin Johnson, Phil Beckwith, Mika Watt, Haggard Clint, Joshua Boyce, and Deanna Adams. You guys are the real G's. Love you all. Now that I've said my piece and I've fully plugged this book that I love, let's get into it.
It's $14.99 on DM's Guild right now. Feel free to treat yourself, y'all.
Treat yourself, treat your DMs, treat your friends, just have a quick look. It's a
Up
great
your
book.
tactical gameplay.
For real, dude. For real. Anyways, back on track. A spell that or spells that I really like using in conjunction, it's hilarious, but the spell Friends can be weaponized in a really, really socially insidious way. You would think a spell called Friends would, make you friends with someone, but they actually are aware that you cast it on them after the fact. So here's a fun little thing I like to do when I cast Friends. I disguise self as someone I want to incriminate and cast Friends on someone. And then dip. And use that to incriminate someone.
That's bad. That's
Doesn't Friends just give you advantage on a charisma check?
No.
So the thing about Friends is I'm not even using Friends for the advantage on charisma checks. I'm using Friends so that at the end of the spell they know who cast it on them. And I want them to think that it was the person that I've disguised self as.
Yeah. Oh, that's so smart.
Right? It's like funky as hell. It's like Gravy Boat, bro.
That's so creative. Holy shit. I'm kind of glad you're not playing my campaign, Harry.
I mean, okay, never get me playing a wizard, because I will fuck with shit. Yeah. I will cast 3 spells. Disguise self and Friends it's just so useful for infighting. It's so good for sowing seeds of distrust in enemy factions. Break into an enemy faction, find out the person who is the least trustworthy on that crew, disguise self as them, cast Friends on the person that hates them the most, and then create some infighting, inner turmoil within the faction, get it loose, get them all fucked up and distrustful with each other, then move in for the kill. That is you really break apart your DM's plans. It's just fun.
Disguise Self is a first level illusion spell that works for an hour, right? Friends is a spell that lasts for a minute. And it's a concentration spell, but it's a cantrip, right? So you can go around, you expend 1 spell slot on your downtime.
I know where you're going with this.
Expend 1 spell slot on your downtime. And then just keep casting the same cantrip again and again and again. Because here's the thing. In downtime, you're probably not in turn-based, right? You're not doing turn-based mode. So you can just keep casting Friends and really fuck up that entire organization. And then they all dogpile on someone, right? Straight up, that's brilliant. That's amazing. I like that a lot.
Do you want to hear my other sneaky little
Give it to me.
Spell tactic?
Give me it.
You get a unique trinket, something really, really unique.
A ruby?
You slide a ruby that was once in someone's throat. You put that item, you sleight of hand it into somebody's pocket that they don't know it's there. You use locate object to use that as a tracker to see where they've gone.
Oh, that's really good. That's
right.
Honestly,
I'm thinking something I've actually done before, and I totally agree with that. It's such a great way to do that.
It's
even on a heist, like a heist mission. If you've got a party of 5, right, you could have the face just grab that ruby, someone else enchants it, or you don't even need to enchant it.
No.
You grab that thing, the very unique trinket, and have the face slip it in the pocket of someone you don't want to catch the rest of your party, right? It might mean that the face is out of the initial part of the heist, but they have done their bit. You know what I mean? And that gives you an early warning system that isn't as, not clumsy, but isn't as, I think alarm is like, you have to be 90 feet. With locate object, that is 1,000 feet, and you get to know which direction it's moving in. So you would know if they're coming at you down a hole.
Exactly, and you can also do it for somebody who is on your side.
Yeah.
If you want to tail the person, or like if you want to send someone into a secret location and you want to know where that person is going, and you don't want to make it appear innocuous if they find that enchanted object, like fully you can put it on someone, you could plant it on someone. That is a full GPS tracker.
Yeah.
In a fantasy setting.
No,
it's a full GPS.
Just quickly, why use, because I can think of a few reasons for our listeners, why use that method over using locate person?
I mean, locate object I feel like is just like for me, it's just multi-purpose, I guess, because you could put it in a creature, you could put it in a wagon, you could put it in a caravan. Like you could store that in a bunch of different areas, bunch of different locations. It doesn't necessarily have to be a person. That's why I would use it. I mean, again, all the examples I've used have been people, but you can and the thing is, I think with locate person,
it's actually locate creature, and one of the reasons I would say is that locate object's a 2nd level spell, whereas locate creature is a 4th level spell. You know, so you've got a little bit of time where you wouldn't be able to use locate creature, so you had to be creative. Or someone like an arcane trickster who doesn't have access to a lot of spells.
Also, the spell can locate a specific creature known to you or the nearest creature of a specific kind. And also, if the creature you described his name is a different form, such as being under the effects of a polymorph spell, the spell doesn't locate the creature. Locate object, you can literally slip that on someone if they polymorph. I guess do your clothes go with you if you polymorph? I don't fucking know. But
when you polymorph, a lot like wild shaping, everything becomes a part of you.
So if you located an object on someone and they polymorphed, would that still activate?
Yeah, I mean, I would rule as a DM, yes, because like wild shape and polymorph, whatever items you have become part of the new form you take. So I would say yes. Obviously, it kind of gets blurry because you're like, then where is the diamond or whatever object it is? Is it inside them? It's because it becomes part of the magical mold. But I would probably still rule that you could still use locate object because it's a part of them.
So yeah, I mean, I would say Kingsley's logistical answer is it's a lower spell slot. Yeah. More hassle, lower spell slot. You got to do a sleight of hand check, but it's still a lower spell slot. You don't.
And that's where I was to begin with. I just thought, in case there's a listener who's like, I remember seeing a spell can locate creature. Why not use that? So I just wanted to get all sides of that asked.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things that we're talking a lot on the player side today, but as a DM, you might want to consider if you're ever planning a heist. What spells do my players have access to? What spell combos do my players have access to? And what would mean that they could complete this heist very easily? Something like locate creature would be. If someone did that in my campaign, the locate object, slipping it into a pocket, they would get inspiration from me. That's a creative usage of a spell.
Love to hear it.
I think it is. I think it's a great usage of that spell. And not one that a lot of people would consider, because you forget how open-ended D&D is if you come from a video game background.
Yeah, it's like this is the creative spell use. If you read the mechanics, you read the text, you make sure you understand what the parameters are. If you're operating within those parameters, 9 times out of 10, a DM's going to go like, you know what? This works mechanically as well as flavor-wise, so go off, son. Go off, Skinny King. Like, do whatever the hell you want.
No, I think that's absolutely true.
Yeah.
I'm trying to think of any spell combos that I've ever used. But I mainly play. I'm a saucy little sort. I mainly play martial characters. But there is one character I do have, the druid, who not specifically like a combo, but of spells. But there was Ali's character Matt had this thing called a storm in a bottle, and one of my planned combos was once he unleashed the Storm in the Bottle, I would then use Call Lightning, because that is actively a storm going on. So I would get extra damage on my Call Lightning.
Sick as
But
hell.
I'm trying to think of any kind of combos. Are there any spell combos you can think of, bringing it back, that would make Mordecai and Sword work?
I honestly, as for a second, I thought you were going to say what spell combos can you think of, and I'm like almost anything in smiting as a paladin. Almost any almost any spell goes hand in hand. But with Mordecai and his sword, nothing. Let's just convince the community, not our community, as small as it is, the whole D&D community, that we just bow our heads in the sand and all pretend Mordecai and his sword doesn't exist. I'm gonna have
Mordecai
I
never
think
had a
I
sword.
see, like, problem with being a DM is not a problem. Sorry, the problem with having an overactive mind is, sure, a lot of listeners, and maybe from you guys can agree with, is your brain never stops. And I'm now going to make a villain on my campaign who only uses Mordecai and his sword.
Please don't. Here's a crispy little combo, right? Here's a combo that can absolutely fuck your shit up, right?
Nice.
Polymorph and Power Word Kill.
I told you that one, actually. How did I not think about that one? I told you that one because Polymorph and Power Word Kill, as long as you get that Polymorph off, because that's the big but here, or a big if. If you can get the Polymorph off, you can insta-kill any enemy. It does not matter if it's your big bad, a fellow player, a Tarask. If you can get the Polymorph off, you can insta-kill anything in D&D. Because Power Word's killed wording is, if that creatures would hit 0 hit points, it would die. You polymorph someone into a rabbit, or whatever the lowest CR is in the monster manual, and if they have, well, actually, a familiar, like a cat has 1 hit point. You polymorph them into a cat. It does not matter what you roll in Power Word Kill, because no matter the damage you do, you cannot roll less than 1 damage. And that is how you insta-kill anything. A big bad, a dragon, a player. So you insta-kill anything in D&D.
Power Word Kill immediately kills anything under 100 HP. That's a fun one to look out for. If your DM is not actively describing Power Word Kill as something very scary and recognizable, I would be afraid. Power Word Kill is one of those things that is fully like a Super Saiyan Spirit Bomb on your soul.
Nice.
It's not a fun time, but at the same time, it's absolutely hilarious to use as a DM. Not in like a I'm going to kill my players kind of way, but in a here's a real threat. I hope you guys haven't lost too much HP. Or something that is in a... Me and Harry talked last time about how some bosses you have might have phases. Maybe that is something that a boss pulls out in his final phase as a coup de grace. Is that the right word?
Yeah, just this once he will go all out.
He must go all out, Sensei. I think we've really spelled it out for our players.
Yeah, we have.
So why don't we... why don't you guys look? Let's all hold hands, okay? Lovely. And why don't we take a little walk down to the ranch called Dice Roll Hill?
Yeah.
Y'all want to come on down? Let me take you there. I've got a lovely little dice. You all know how this works. I roll a dice, and that decides what topic we'll talk about. Shockingly, today we've talked about spells and what spells to use, and when to use them, and how to use them together for a long time.
I mean, as a commenter, Quinn really got his worth there. We just done a full, we just done his quiz, and there you go. There you go to anyone else who's a listener. If you guys talk about something, we just took someone's comment who was commenting, it was yesterday or was it this morning? Comment. We just talked about it almost over an hour about that one topic. We're happy to. Like I said, we have our dice roll table, but we're happy to forgo the dice roll table and talk about reply to comments. Literally, like, if we had enough comments, we would just scrap the table for the episode. We're happy to answer any questions or even just talk about things you guys want to hear. But yes,
and
absolutely, we do it for you.
We do it for you. All that cost was your internet subscription. Here we go, little dice. Oh, that is a 1. That is how to get comfortable role playing and finding a character's voice. Ooh. I know I love to role play. I'm a big role player. But I know, for instance, Harry, you sometimes don't very much... You're a big role player, but you don't go as deep into the character voices all the time.
Yeah, I mean, I think ultimately... Right, like, okay, so Kingsley is very, very good at voices. He does all sorts of accents. He's very, very good with voices. I'm not super great with voices. I try my best to try and change the tone and cadence of what I'm saying. Try and maybe like slow stuff down if I'm playing like a very stupid character like Yondo or something like try and I don't know dip into some like slightly different stuff to differentiate characters. But I think as long as you are making it aware of what kind of like which character you're talking as, you don't necessarily need to come up with different accents for everyone. Now,
No.
if that's your jam, and you love doing accents like Kingsley and you love doing
Go
voices
for
and
it.
you're really fucking good at so fucking go for it, man, because that's
Yeah.
so awesome if you can pull it off.
This isn't a gatekeeping thing. This isn't a you're playing D&D and you don't use character voices. Get out of my table. No, this is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
this is a
exactly.
if you want to embody a character and you are comfortable embodying a character, does a voice help you embody that character, or do you feel like it would detract from it? You as a DM, Harry, you have an array of character voices you do, all of which I find are great. Especially our boy Grim Gorlo, who R.I.P.
R.I.P.
But
Grim. Mwah.
it's this is a very player based episode. What are some things you guys do when you are visualizing a character, creating your character? What do you do to get into that character's mindset, and how do you feel like getting into that character would help your playstyle?
Do you want to take this, Harry, or do you want me to go first?
Go ahead, Allie. Do your thing, man.
Oh, thanks, baby. One of the
Mwah,
things,
mwah.
one of the things that I actually find really useful is have a Pinterest board for that character. Something I never ever thought about doing. And this all came when I had started. I actually ran a Game of Thrones Discord RP for a long time before I even ever played D&D. I just loved the world of Game of Thrones and went to run an RP around it. And someone talked about like, oh, because I think my character had said something in the written RP, the text-based RP, and someone's like, oh, that'd be a really, I've got a quote like that on my board, and I was like, what does that mean? And they were like, oh, it's a board out for my character. I was like, I don't follow, and they talked about like how Pinterest is this app where you can save pins, what they're called pins or pictures of anything. It could be if you want to think about home improvements or kitchens, or you can save pictures of anime or whatever. They said they made a board for their character, and they save pins to a specific board they've made, like a folder with their character's name and things that made them their character. I was like, that's interesting. And then when I first ever started playing D&D, I was like, I want to make a board for my character because I just like always recommended pins, and I had like some some quotes saved, some outfits. Even aesthetic things. It was like there was like an old school western like tobacco leather pouch with like a revolver sitting beside it. If you let me get in character for Matt, and even simple things like that, like looking over some quotes. Not even for quotes to say, just quotes about like, let me actually, you know what? Why don't I just open my Pinterest right now and just say a couple, and I can read them, and I'm like, okay, this is the type of character because. You know, sometimes it's hard to find your character's voice, and this doesn't even go as far as doing a voice, as in the personality of your character. So if I just open up, when we just talked about Matt's, the first thing that pops up here is no resurrection this time. That's because his whole thing is he died and was brought back against his will. And he was a former soldier in the King's Army, one of the highest ranks you could possibly get. And he's a lot jaded. So, like, one of the pins here is in a real war, what fool waits for the enemy's turn? That already gives me the type of person that he is. Another quote is, it's not gambling if you know you're going to win. Already with that, I know that Matt's a gambler. He's willing to take a risk, and he's not new to the world. And that says that I've got hundreds of pins, even some are just closing weapons. But already with that, it tells me the type of character I'm playing. And this is the board that I've made, so I know who's going to be. And it's also good for setting a good template for a character. You know, like what things you want to lay out from the get go. Even there's one of what I'm laughing at here is 57 convenient ways to murder a man. It's a picture of like a textbook. Like that already tells me the type of man that Matt is. I've got one here that's they call certain methods of fighting good and others evil, acting if there was some nobility to the battlefield. Such illusions perpetuated by heroes throughout history have led countless young men to their bloody deaths, all for the sake of valor and glory. That there is when I read that, I'm like, okay, Matt's a no nonsense, isn't going to be like already with the group, he's not like, yeah, we're adventurers, let's do nice things. He's not that type of person. Even when we went to this little town, he did help badly from this zombie plague and an alchemist had created by accident. One of the players in our party was like, "Yeah, we'll do whatever we can to help," and instantly, as my character's somehow now fallen into the leadership role of the group. Like I play in a few campaigns. There's not really a leader in them, but for this campaign, Matt has very much taken the leadership role. And he instantly was like, whoa, 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 we ain't helping unless we're getting paid. We're not adventurers. The clear line in the sand, we're not adventurers that do things for glory. If you can't pay us, we're moving out of this town and you can just become a footnote in history. I really don't care. Whatever sob story you tell me, I've heard it before. And this whole thing stems from, as a soldier for this country, I literally died and I didn't get a reward. You know, my days were cut short. I'm only brought back alive from an absolute miracle that happened, and I'm now not going to live my life and serve as others to just go ahead and die again. And even with those few simple pictures, and with the backstory I'd created, I know the mindset of Matt, and I'd highly recommend making a Pinterest just to go over, just to even fan through mid game or before your 10 minutes before your session starts. Because with key things and phrases you've saved, you already have the type of character this is.
Yeah, I think it's so vital to, before you play a character, have an idea of who they are. But the thing is as well, you can find your feet during play, because there is obviously the pre-constructed world in your head of who your character is and where they come from. But once you get into the game, how they perform, the dice love to tell a story. They really do. I had an amazing, a gorgeous pirate lord swashbuckler who was honestly a god king. And then as soon as he's in play, he's a lovable goof. Because the world just has a way of coming at you like that. A good thing for me when making a character is obviously, yes, it's important to get all your references in order, but this is a little bit more like if you do want to do a character voice, how do you feel comfortable doing a character voice, and where do you start? Find yourself an accent that you can do a range of emotions in. Like, if there's a voice that sounds funny, it might not just be the voice for your character, because if you can do a funny voice, but you can't sound angry in that voice, you can't sound happy in that voice, you can't sound upset in that voice, that's not a very malleable voice or a malleable template for your character. It might literally just mean that your character always sounds the same. If you don't really want to be talking in a D&D campaign, you might just be a mute. That's a thing that we have in real life. That's a disability that exists in real life. Why would it not exist in a fantasy game?
That's totally true. And I'd also just a thought on that. I don't want to cut you off, but you even don't have to do a voice. I mean, shout out to you, Bacon, if you're listening. He just started off talking in his normal voice, and now he goes out his way to do voices. Like his first character, Arax, loved that big minotaur. He just spoke with his normal voice, and because you know your own voice, you can do your own ranges. And he started as a player who didn't even really want to speak because he was too nervous to RP, and now he's got a mentally crazy character called Slab, who he goes all out for the voices, doing this manic, crazy voice. But even just another thing, two players in my campaign, Anne and Danny, they don't really do voices. Danny, for her old character, spoke in a later version of her voice, and for her new character, a bit more of a flirtatious tone of her voice. And for Quinn, speaks in more of a hopeful, kind of gentle tone for Quinn. And it sounds different enough that it's not her regular voice, but you also can hear it's just a variation of how she talks normally. So you don't have to go out there and go, oh yes, my name is whatever, it's like Zane Hydros, and I'm from this guild now, and I'm a little bit like this. Or elves are usually posh and regal, and then you've got the dwarfs who are fucking Scottish. You can just talk in your normal voice. I mean, Quinn and I'm using their character names, Quinn and Sylvia, or Maeve now. Danny and Anne, I can tell they're RPing, and they're using a very slight differentiation from their voice, but I can still tell it's their character voice. Like when like I'm talking right now. Usually when I talk, I'm a little bit more deeper. I use my slang a bit more, and my accent comes out a bit much. But I can talk a little bit more gentle like this, where I'm not speaking as fast, a little bit slower and softer, sounding out the words a bit, and that's already like a different type of tone, and that could be your character voice.
Yeah.
Another great tip if you do want to do a voice is even just pronunciating things is great for dragons. Like, what are you doing here? Like pronouncing key letters at the start and end of words can really help. There's little things like
changing
that.
up your diction, changing up the way you pattern your voice and everything like that. It massively helps. Even finding like a little phrase that you can catch on to. I know we always talk about our characters, but I've got a character in Harry's campaign where instead of saying I, he will speak in the third person and will refer to other people in certain little phrases.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just something that helps.
I mean,
like what?
I have a thought after this.
What was it? I think it was the first ever big thing you guys fought was the Manticore in your first session, and it spoke like, "Who is here in mine castle of dread?" Like he really enunciated the words, and immediately part were like, "Oh, even from that tone." Again, and that's not me saying character, like that's not me saying DM voice. That's just the voice you want to do, like.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have to do a voice. I've got a player who's never done a voice once for his character, Aaron, his character Kelly. He's never once done a voice, and he just RPs talking with even Harry, for example. Harry, for his character Yandu, he just speaking his own voice, but a little bit more like slurred, and they could easily tell that was him. It really comes down to what you gauge your fun at. Do you find doing a voice fun? I personally do, so I'll always try to give a character a new voice. But if you feel too nervous and are just comfortable and you're just as happy doing your own voice, there's not a problem with that at all. Like, there's no rule that when you play D&D, you have to sit down and do a voice. There's no rule at all. D&D is always about your own fun, and just go at your own pace. Treat a voice in D&D like a relationship or just moving through this cosmic space is just go at your own pace.
Absolutely.
I cannot agree with that more. And I think D&D is a game about kind of being vulnerable with your friends and trying to sort of get past that whole like, oh, I don't want to be embarrassing if I do a voice. If I do a voice, are people going to think that I'm like too nerdy or what? Like, dude, you're literally sitting around with a sword fighting goblins and such. Like, please don't worry about what people think about you. Like, just do what your heart is telling you to do. Now, the thing about voices is you could do a whole bunch of stuff with them. Like we've talked about it at length, but like, I don't do a lot of accents. But I try and make my character voices very distinct because you can go like really, really fast and like really like to stumble over your words and like a researcher or someone who's super nervous, or you can kind of slow it down and get a little casual with it.
Yeah, that's
really
true.
inflect your stuff, man. Because then like you can tell those are two different characters, but I haven't changed my voice whatsoever.
That is true, and that voice there was a little bit like Yandu. Yeah, we should all just take 5 and relax. That was Yandu's voice, man.
Everybody just get along, man.
And even that was literally Yandu's voice. I could always tell when you were doing that voice. And like even just another thing, say you're playing an elf, and elves are always in Tolkien, almost any depiction, whether it be a video game, a movie, whatever. They always sound a lot more regal, and they have that kind of English American accent. But oh, hello, darling. Yes, I'm from Tunuville. But you could kind of say fuck the cliche, and you could be an elf who's like, alright, I'm from the fucking woods, how you doing, mate? Like, you could do like hard Scottish for an elf.
I love that.
Like, you could do like, I've been alive for fucking 200 years guarding the woods. That is all I've fucking done. And I'm a high elf. You don't have to do, I'm a high elf from the regal woods of Casabia and blah, blah, blah. I am more important than you. You can straight up be like, I am from the fucking woods, mate. I'm a high elf. I've lived for 400 years and I'm a better person than you. You don't have to do the classic cliche voice. I sometimes do, because I sometimes like to be, it depends what the character is, what the voice is. But there is no rule that says you can't be a Scottish fucking elf or any accent. Like, you don't have to form to the norms. You can do whatever the fuck you want. It's your character, and you can get as weird with it as you want.
There's literally no reason that a gnome couldn't sound like this. Hello, you want to buy my fine wares? I've got so much I can sell you right now. Please
Oh,
buy my
incredible.
little
and
trinkets. I love
and
it.
just before we, in case we get those comments, voices is not racist. It's like when people do like when people. Brennan Lee Mulligan made a great point. A voice can be a voice. If someone in your playgroup is from that country and they are offended, maybe not do that voice. But it's like when people have a problem with that. But then you have someone who's not quite intelligent and you use that voice. That's classist. That's straight up classist. Yeah, straight up classist.
Here's the thing: we're in a fantasy world, right? There are a lot of real life issues that can be brought up by D&D, but play them through the table. D&D is a great space for experiencing all sorts of things in life that you might not actually get to experience. If you want to deal with the classist issue between the half-orcs of Lemuria and the human overlords, deal with that. Work with that in there. But it is, again, a fantasy realm. If you're doing something that sounds slightly French or slightly Spanish, that's not French or Spanish. That's a character voice in a fantasy world.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
like, and people,
I will
people
say-
usually. Oh, you go, Harry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no. I was just gonna say, do like when you're doing voices, do be careful. Please, like gauge the table. Like
Absolutely.
if someone says, "Hey, I heard you do that voice," it like obviously if it's something that hits home for them, if it's something like personal, then they say, "Hey, going forward, I would just like to like run through that kind of stuff that you're gonna say in that voice, just so we all get like a better understanding of like what you're doing." Because it took me off guard or something. Like, please feel free if you are at a table to voice those concerns, because D&D is a game about being open and honest and vulnerable with everyone, so that everyone has a really good time. Communicate your issues with the DM, with players, in like a mature and understanding way. No one is out here to get you, but also like please let your discomfort be known, because it's for you, but it's also for everyone else, and you can work through those issues in a mature and understanding way. I'm sure you can, because you're all great people.
And the
but
thing is, the DM may not
then-
even like. You could be in two fronts. Like Harry just said, if you go to your DM and you say, or even as a player at the table, and you're from the place they're doing the accent, and if they say, like, I'm playing a dumb character, so I'm just going to use Scotland because I'm from Scotland. If someone was like, I'm going to play a dumb character, so I'm going to do a Scottish accent, you can be like, well, then why are you going to that accent? That's a bit fucked up. But it could also be another end
exactly.
of why. Say someone's doing a voice, and you know, and you're from that place. And you say to them, were you doing that bad on purpose? It could also just be the person is not good at that accent. I can do some voices, but there are some accents I am terrible at, and it could even be you could be sitting there going, are they trying to do that badly and make fun of this type of accent? And you can speak to the DM and they could be like, I'm sorry, I wanted to try something new and I'm still trying to fight, because not everyone's a voice actor, you know what I mean? Like not everyone's great at doing accents and voices. It could just be a mistake, but if it isn't, it's good to make your feelings heard. And you know, like Harry, I couldn't have ever worded that better than Harry could have. D&D, you can be very vulnerable when you're putting yourself out there and RPing with your friends, and it should be a safe place. So always, if you're a bit uneasy about something, definitely bring up to your DM, because I'm sure your DM's going to be understanding.
Absolutely.
Or
As
a
well,
player,
when we say that character voices are not racist, that is not an overall general rule of thumb. That is not a free pass for you to go out there and do a voice that is outwardly offensive. That is
100%,
something that should
100%.
never be encouraged. You should never go out of your way to make another living person feel uncomfortable or generalize a group of people. You shouldn't do that. You can use an accent or a tone of voice that is well recognizable. Like Ali said, doing something like a slow southern drawl. That may be offensive to someone from, say, for instance, the Appalachian region of America. That might be offensive. But always, we're playing a fantasy game here, y'all. If you can be this creative, why not be a little bit more empathetic? Read the table, read the players, and always be a smart D&D player, whether it comes to rule combos or to judging the table's general feeling about something like that. We don't mean to get deep on y'all. We just want everyone to have fun.
Yeah, we just want to have a little fun, you know?
But that is our, I think that's a good place for us to like talk about character voices and everything, and getting into character. Are there any other little tidbits you guys have for new players maybe who are like, "Ooh, I don't know how to create a character. I don't know where to start or where to jump
Oh,
off."
that's my favorite part about D&D. Funnily enough, my favorite part about D&D, and I know it's to come off as wrong saying that it's not sitting with my friends having a good time. That's my next favorite part. And I just gotta be honest with myself. My favorite part of D&D is making the character. And
Yeah.
I wasn't saying start with the Pinterest board. That's just how that's what I use to how I get into character before a session starts. I look at the board there. But character creation, it's going to be different for everybody. Like, say that if you're struggling with a character and you listen to us three babble on, and say somehow we all said the exact same thing, and you're like, well, that's not how I do it. Am I doing it wrong? No, everyone does everything differently about anything. And I go about what is the character I want to make. For me personally, I don't want to play the same character 10 times. I don't want to play like say that I'm playing a druid who loves the nature, and then I play a new character like, oh, I'm a cleric of nature. And if that's fun for you, that's fine. For me, I like to play something drastically different. That's how I go about my character process. So I'll look at like, well, I'll just do it the way I had my first ever character I ever made, a character called Bellum. He was an Aasimar who got kicked out the Seven Heavens because his father was essentially Asmodeus. And during the Holy War, he sided with his dad to fight against God, and they didn't win. They didn't win because the campaign is set as a very kind of like Catholicism campaign based with like, you know, good versus bad, the gods and devils. Not so much your Bahamut is just kind of like a god and a devil, the kind of like old school religion. And he got kicked out the Seven Heavens for leading that kind of war against God. And my next character I made after that was like my favorite character I made called Xander. And Bellum was a flirtatious, does what he wants trickster rogue. And he didn't give a fuck who he was hurting as long as he could keep living his life the way he wanted to. Because he was like, I'm just going to chill on Earth and do what I want. But Xander, I was like, I want to make him very different from my last character. So I'm not going to make him hyper aggressive. I'm not going to make him a do what he want type of rogue. How do I want to play this? And then I looked at the classes for wizard, and I was like, oh, I could be a war mage. I could be this badass wizard. And I was like, well, I also kind of just played this kind of like main character anime cliche protagonist because that's what I wanted to do for my first ever character. I didn't want to do an edgy role. I wanted to do that kind of like badass kind of anime character. So my second character, I was like, well, what would be someone that my character would have hated? So I made this like nervous, super shy book nerd. I ended up making him a war mage because his father was that, but that fit more for the character. He wants to follow his dad's footsteps, but he's not the war mage his father was. He, like, our first ever fight, my character was so nervous, I even said to the DM, can I roll at disadvantage? Because my character would be really nervous to fight an ogre for the first time. You can look at it like that, like, if it's from the standpoint of, what do I want to do that's different? So, let's look at the first character, let's look at my last character, and now going forward, every character I make, I look at my last character, and I want to do something very different. That's one way to go about it, is just like, what's different from my last character? Now, if you're out there and this is your first ever character you're making, it could even be and if you're really struggling, because sometimes it comes naturally for people, others it doesn't. If you're really struggling, you could think, what's my favorite movie? And let's just say that your favorite movie is Scott Pilgrim vs. the World. Okay, who's your favorite character in that movie? It's Scott. Okay, what do you like about Scott? I kind of like he's a bit of a loser and he just can't be bothered about anything. And okay, then that's great. Why don't you take some of those things? Like Lord of the Rings is your favorite character, Aragorn. I like that he's driven, he doesn't give up, he keeps his word. Okay, that's awesome. You like that? Then why don't we take some of that and apply that to the character you want to make? Why don't you make your character driven? And there's also nothing wrong with just completely stealing an idea if it's your first time and make it your own. You know, play what you think is cool. Like whatever you think is cool in any type of media or a book, whatever, you can take on some of those characters, or even just do a mishmash and take a bunch of characteristics from different characters from different movies and stuff and throw it all together. Character creation is different for everyone. You just gotta find where you what you gel with the most.
Yeah,
absolutely. I fully agree on all that.
Yeah, I think it's important to figure out what kind of tropes you like and analyze those. And if you're a first-time player, look at some tropes you really like. Maybe watch some overly sarcastic productions. They break down tropes amazingly. Go on to TV tropes.
Yeah, and
stuff like
thing is,
that.
if you've joined, because I'm in a few D&D meme pages on Facebook, and there's a lot of people I see in these pages who have never played D&D before. They just like the memes. See if you are one of those people, and then you want to make a rogue, and then you end up writing the backstory and coming up with the idea, and you see that it's really edgy. And if you think, oh no, I've just made the memes that the classic edgy rogue. I don't want to be made fun of. No, you play if you legitimately want to play an edgy rogue with the tragic parents are dead, go ahead. Because yeah, it may be a cliche, but if that's what you want to play, there's literally no harm in going with that. Like literally, like if Kingsley had come to me and said instead of his pirate, he wanted to do a really edgy rogue, I'd have been like, yeah, man, go ahead. You know, fucking let your freak flavor fly. Your freak flag flavor. Your freak flavor.
Freak flavor fly. Ooh, new segment.
That'll be our first ever T-shirt.
That should be that is the episode title for sure. Freak flavor fly.
Oh, there we go. There we go.
We
We usually make the episode name afterwards, but you guys made it. You guys heard us make it. Well, technically live, not really. So yeah, this is going to be called Freak Flavor Fly. Let your freak flag fly. And if you want to play an edgy rogue, fucking go ahead. You want to play a cliche dumb orc? Do that. You want to play a regal racist high elf? Sure. Like, it doesn't matter if it's a cliche. If that's what you want to do, go ahead.
Yeah. Harry,
absolutely.
I think you were saying something just before I launched into it there.
Nah, no worries, dude. I was just gonna say, literally, I agree with fully everything that you guys are saying. You make a character. Characters are made from dozens of tropes all smashed together. Nothing is original. You can literally mix and match like you're a kid at a what are those a pick and mix. You can just make a character pick and mix style. There's another thing that I really enjoy. If you are one of those people who enjoys coming up with characters, and for you coming up with a character concept is not easy, but it comes quite naturally. You can start with like a 4 to 5 word prompt. Like when I made Yondo, who is my turtle cleric, the first prompt, all I said was stoned as fuck turtle Jesus. That was the prompt.
And that
stoned
is
as fuck
Yandu.
turtle Jesus.
That is
and
Yandu.
That's him.
I mean, literally,
that's him straight up.
We're not going to see Yandu for a while because I think you went on a hiatus for the campaign from personal just because you're so busy right now. But if you think of how Yandu exited, and I've only just had this epiphany now, he walked out into the desert alone to do a mission to help people. Like,
Yeah.
Me and Harry have actually, before I go into this, always talk to your DM. They will give you some lovely character ideas, or a player will give you, the DM, some great character ideas. Me and Harry
Always
have talked at
speak to
length
the
about
DM,
what
always.
Yondo is about to do, and also the whole Jesus parable, because we didn't realize it at the time, but yeah, it's a bit of a Jesus parable.
He's Jesus. He's stoned as fuck turtle Jesus. But
yeah.
But the thing is, you can get wonderful character from simple prompts. Stoned as fuck turtle Jesus, you're like, okay, what the fuck's that gonna, like, what's the whole deal with that? But there's so many things that just talk to your DM, talk to other players. Everything and everyone is an inspiration. They'll tell you how to take your character to the next level. They'll give you something and go, wow, that is incredible. I'm going to tweak it this way and make it my own and use it for my character. Everything can be an inspiration for you, and you can make your character that much deeper if you talk to your DM and go, I want to do this. Can you give me a way to do this the best way possible? Do you have something planned? Can I help you plan something for this character? And using those guides and those resources, your character can become so fleshed out without you even realizing. You spent 2 hours talking about your character, you get to the end of it and you realize, wow, this character is a lot more rounded than it was when I went in with like a 5-word prompt.
Yeah, always.
It can be that easy.
The payoff is so good because you're not just alone bouncing, throwing shit at the wall and seeing what sticks. It's like a soundboard. I mean, that's how Kingsley's character was made for my campaign. That's how mine was made for his campaign. We originally joked about like this like eco-terrorist druid, and then we came up with we're first talking about well, actually no, that's a lie. The first idea for my character was vegetarian, because I wanted to play just a super druid, like vegetarian, wants to like, he's super hippy dippy, and that is not what my character is. Well, that's not what was made. Now after me and Kingsley sat about, like, our first question was like, what would happen to a druid if you took away the woods? And it became this amazing, compelling character. It was just because it bounced ideas. And like King's character, Mortis, I love him to death. And his literal, I think if I scroll through the mile-long message logs right before the phone call, I was like, so what's your idea before I get back from the gym? And he said, the most piratey pirate that ever fucking lived. And I was like, cool, let's run with it. And I got on a phone call with him, and we ended up developing this amazing character, this tragic past, but he doesn't let it define him. He still pushes forward. He's a pirate lord, and yeah, when you read the most piratey fucking pirate, you probably think like a dumb Jack Sparrow, but no, I adore Mortis, one of the favourite characters on my table, because of just how much depth is there. Always talk to your DM, even something as small as like, for me, I always go to a DM for approval about everything, what they look like, what is the clothes, because you don't want to step on a DM's toes and be like, you show up in like modern day and age clothes, that's what you say your clothes are, and the DM is like, this is like old style, like medieval times. You don't want to, step on a DM's toes like that. And a player in my game, Jen, she submitted, she'd never played D&D before, didn't really know the races, but she submitted a really World of Warcraft looking dark elf for her wood elf. And I just messaged her being like, hey, could you find different art? I'd allow that if it wasn't for a drow or a thing in D&D, and they're actually going to play a part in this campaign down the line. And if you look like a drow, it's going to be a bit weird being a wood elf. And I say, unless you're literally, because I'm totally down for you to be a half drow, half wood elf, if that's what you want. And she said, no, I'm just a full-on wood elf. And I was like, okay, well, you've picked essentially art of a drow. And so I can change it. I really like the art, but I'll change it if I have to. And I was like, well, actually, have you got a character idea yet? And she's like, I don't really have one. I was like, well, there's a place I'm developing right now. This is back when I was in the world building stage, called the Shadowlands, and it has this like horrible mist that circumferences all, and they built like a giant kind of the wall, like a kind of Game of Thrones style wall around it to lock it off from the rest of the world. You could have been part of the druids that went there to heal the land. And it didn't work because it's part of the world lore, but I'm happy to put you as a part of that world lore. And when you went in there, you were forever tainted, and that's why you have this like purpley coloured skin now, and not your wood elf browns, because you're affected by the Shadowlands. And she was like, oh, I love that idea. Are you okay if I run with that? I'm like, yeah, fucking go ahead and run with that. Do whatever you want. Just come back to me, let me proofread everything. But yeah, happily. Like, and that was all because I saw guys message her. Like, if you speak to your DM, you will be so surprised at the character you can create. Because you could start off with one tiny idea and end up having the character fully made after that conversation with so many more layers and sprinkles on top.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I fully agree.
And character development happens in-game. By its definition, it's a TTRPG. It's a tabletop role-playing game.
Yeah, it happens in-game. When I first made Bellum, I literally thought he was going to be this, like, really an angry, kind of, like, more angrier Geralt. And the first time I sat down at the table, I was like, he actually kind of likes to relax a little bit. Like, your character you have in your head will be, maybe it won't be, but for me sometimes, it's usually very different from what you actually end up playing. Because with the minute you sit down and hear the other players RPing and scenes are put before you, you may be like, no, actually, this is what the character is.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we've done a lot on, helping out the players today, and even helping out some of the DMs. But there is something that we've got cooking on the back burner, that we've been talking about for a little bit, because I know this will be the 3rd episode, so we've not actually done a tremendous amount, but there's a lot we want to give you guys. But we want to make sure it's something you guys will like.
That's crazy. We've only done 3 episodes. Like, you guys, you should see our Discord for us 3. We have got so many shows we want to make, and with how much we're talking, you think we've done like 10 episodes by now. We've got so many shows we want to bring. We're still small right now. I mean, we need editors. We only have one editor, and God love him, it's Kingsley, and he is busy doing, like, we record on a Monday, upload on Monday. It gives him a week to edit, but even with everything going on with working and this COVID, let's just give a bit of appreciation to Kingsley, first of all. He is not just our editor. We are all equal owners of Saving Throws, and he does so much work for the editing, the sound, and the video editing. Love the boy to death.
Absolutely.
Thank you both. But
we have so many fucking show ideas, it's kind of ridiculous.
Yeah.
There's one we will be announcing halfway through February. That is one that is going to be coming in March, that we are so excited for you guys to watch and hear. But that is Loose Links. Look, I am you can tell I'm Scottish, man. Loose Links. Aye, mate. I'm falling over the place. You can tell I barely slept.
Flying, loose links.
Yeah, you can tell I did not sleep. Loose Lips sink ships, and we've got something we cannot wait to tell you guys. But that will be in February. We'll be announcing that.
Yeah, it's super quick shout out. I do love editing the show. It means I get to listen to our lovely voices, which I'm sure you all love now. But a good friend of mine, James Warren Green, he is a phenomenal sound engineer, sound designer, composer, which you will actually be hearing some of his music very soon. He helps me out. He's a glorious boy, a great boy.
We love Jamie.
We do love Jamie on this channel. We stan James.
We stan a young Jamie.
There's a thing that we want to float by you guys. A fun little DM help guide, if you will, to bring a little bit more life into your world, to bring a little bit more pizzazz, the old razzle dazzle, a little bit of sparkle. And the running title we have for this little segment, it might feature all three of us, it might be just two of us, but there will always be two of us there at least, and it might change weekly. But we are running with a little concept that we like to call Reflavor Town, where Harry cracks open his massive compendium of monsters, the monster manual, if you will. We roll a little dice, take a look at the monster inside, and we just tear it to shit and give it a little bit more flavor. So if that is something you guys want to see us do let us know. But I think, we might even try it right now. How are you feeling, lads? You want to reflavor something?
Yeah, take me to Reflavor Town.
Oh.
Ooh, give me some flavor, and how I'll capitalize.
Oh.
All right, boys. Let's reflavor a monster from the book. Now, this is the monster manual, completely raw. You can get it from any bookstore. Go to a bookstore and buy it. Don't buy it from Amazon. You read a book, you idiot.
Dumbass.
I love
or if you want to be safe, just throwing this out, or if you do want to be safe during this pandemic, and if you have D&D, you can buy the player's handbook through D&D Beyond and have it digitally.
Yes.
Also very true.
That is also a fact.
So, we're gonna do a little roll. We're gonna do a little roll to see what page we land on. Now, this is gonna be a D315. So we don't have a dice for that. So, let's get up one of those funky, fun digital rollers that we all use because it's a pandemic time and it's a fun time for everyone involved.
Fun DM tip. While Harry does this, roll online. Sometimes, if you've got a lot of enemies, don't roll all those dice. If you've got like a mob of 20, group them into groups of 5 and roll all that damage on an online roller. Treat yourself.
Absolutely, dude.
Or if you like rolling dice, do it. I'll never forget how great it felt rolling Tiamat's breath attack. 26d6. Oh, I felt. So I had to borrow dice from everyone at the table. It felt so good.
Fuck off. Harry, what are we working with, champion?
I rolled a fat 176.
Of course.
If we turn, that's going to be let me turn the page.
Which is actually really funny because we briefly touched on this in our last podcast. For those who watched that one, about how to make I think the topic was how to deal with a player who knows the monster manual inside and out. This little segment going forward will be a way to get around that.
Absolutely. And we have hit the hags section. You know them, you love them. Ugly.
Oh, hags can be a TPK in the right or wrong hand. Depending on the hags that you have, hags can be a TPK at any level.
Shall we pick a hag in specific to reflavor?
Let's pick the worst one.
So we hit 176, so I'm thinking green hag just off the cuff.
Yeah, they're not that great. Let's go for green hags
Green hag or sea hag? That looks fun to me.
Okay, let's go for green hag. So what we want to try and do here is offer you something up that when your players look at it, they are like, what the fuck is that? But as soon as they get hit by it, it feels a little bit more recognizable, but still absolutely terrifying. So the green hag off the top, I've
got it right in front of me. Do you want me to read off?
Go ahead, my man. Yeah. Tell me those features.
Yeah, absolutely. Armor class 17, hit points 82, speed 30 feet. Amphibious, innate spellcaster with dancing lights, minor illusion, vicious mockery, mimicry. It can mimic animal sounds, claws, illusory appearance, and invisible passage. I have a few ideas, but I don't know. Do you guys have anything off the cuff that you would like to just posit?
I have a few things. Yeah, I'll let Kingsley go first though. I've talked a lot this podcast.
I've got just one off the cuff. A kind of like a bird of paradise looking Kenku or Aarakocra. where they are this beautiful, like, either peacock or majestic parrot-looking Kenku, just off that mimicry. Maybe with Amphibious, I don't know. Maybe there's some kind of water-dwelling bird. Maybe it's fully just a big duck.
Just a
I don't
big
know,
fucking
So
duck,
you went
dude.
to appearance reflavoring. I've went instantly to abilities and damage. You can see the types of DM we are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Go ahead.
oh, I was gonna say, should we settle on appearance first, and then we'll go through and reflavor some little things that would. Where do we think this creature is? Where in the world is it?
Well, if it's a green hag, I'd off the bat say the woods, but that's because the name Green's in there. You throw amphibious, you could do like a lady in the lake situation, but much more darker for
Yeah.
those who love Arthurian
Yeah.
legend. You could look a lady in the lake with that, have her near it, since it is amphibious, but obviously you don't want to step too much on the toes of the sea hag. Again, they have the whole sea. This could be this could be a type of hag that you find that only dwells in lakes, in the woods or ponds. Or just go for straight up the woodland vibes. Kind of give her a lot of these kind of nature-based, maybe even druid appearances, lure the party. I'm thinking they're a druid. I mean, in some way, hags are like just darker druids. Depending on the hag, they live in these little wooden shacks out in the middle of nowhere. You could totally have this hag, and hags love to look more beautiful. Even if they don't use any magical things to change their appearances, hags usually always think they're beautiful. So you could have them as a somewhat either magically made appearance, or they just look like that, a beautiful and really nail on the head when you're describing it to the party, a druid-looking person, and when they see that they're actually a hag, could really put them in a tailspin.
Absolutely. I have something that I would like to just throw out there.
Throw it.
Amphibious, illusory, mimicry.
Yeah.
What about a siren, y'all? A siren that lures you to the rocks with dancing lights and minor illusion? Someone who can mimic voices?
Call her
Amphibious, can breathe water and air? Someone like this is a illusory kind of siren sitting on the rocks, luring men to their death with their strange magics that twist what things actually look like. Covering the rocks, making them invisible, making it so that your ship doesn't even realize it's hit a rock until it actually happens.
Yeah, giving her like a lair or something, a lair that has, things like slippery rocks or moss-covered ground. It's a low-level running illusory terrain, the druid spell.
Yeah.
I think a siren is great. Call her something like the Mother of the River or something like that.
Yeah, I love it.
Sweet. So, Mother of the River, she's a siren that calls dwellers in the woods, dwellers on docks towards her. Amphibious still, she's got that mimicry, she's got that invisible passage, and illusory
invisible
appearance.
passage. Absolutely. Allie, you said you had some mechanical stuff that you would posit to change how she plays, how you would run against her. What kind of stuff were you thinking for this green hag?
Well, immediately looking at her, she can only spellcast Dancing Lights, Minor Illusion, and Vicious Mockery. And apart from that, she has a claw attack. That isn't really that threatening. However, you give her Conjure Woodling Beings. That's something that could really be like, cause she's a hag hags usually use things based off the land in their recipes, their poisons, their alchemy. It's all nature based. Have her Conjure Woodland Beings, look down the druid spell list, throw some of that on. A hag that's adapted to her environment and will use nature in a not so nurturing fashion to kill her enemies. That classic nature versus nurture, take it to the extreme. I see that she speaks Draconic here. Maybe give her a breath attack. You could even flavor it as, if you want to really amp up the ugliness of her, give her a bad breath attack that does poison or acid damage. It doesn't have to be like a dragon's fire breath. It could be an acidic breath. Because if you really want to because sometimes you want to make your players feel really uncomfortable after you're done describing this hag, really have them go, should do a breath attack now. If someone's like a dragon, no. And you can even describe her breath is rotten to the core. The stench already, even without the attack hitting you, is burning the hairs in your nostril. Give her a breath attack and really just throw them on through a loop there. If she is good with magic, give her the shield spell. She doesn't have that high in AC. And you get, instead of it just being like the arcane shield, you can even do something like she pulls up vines from the ground. Just use the shield spell, but flavor it as something completely different. Instead of forming that arcane shield, she could bring up the roots and vines from the ground to defend her.
Yeah. What do we think about buffing her armor? Not armor, sorry, hit points.
Hit points,
I mean, she's at a solid 82 right now.
so I always say it depends on the amount of players you have. You got 3 or 4 players, that's fine depending on the level. So you got 9 level 5s, like I used to have. I would definitely amp up that health because you got to remember action economy.
Absolutely. For the Siren, give her a swim speed of 40. For your sort of upgraded hag thing that Ali you're going for, give her a fly speed of like 20 or 30, and make it like the Baba Yaga where she's in her like mortar and pestle. Like
Yeah,
that would be sick. That would be
and
so sick. And the shield spell, if you flavored that as her using the lid of the mortar instead of her using magic, she's literally using the lid of the mortar to bounce off a spell because it's like a magic mortar and pestle.
even
Yeah.
something that you could really throw on there with the taking a bit of the siren there and a bit of hags. If you've creeped your players out, well, it depends if you're going for the creeped out or lure them with beauty. If you're going for the creeped out, how much more horribles are going to make it if she uses charm person and one of the players falls for her air quotes dazzling looks?
Ooh,
What
that would be
about,
creepy.
I know we talked about it earlier, what about the illusory appearance? Why don't we level that? Not level it, sorry. Why don't we pair it with some kind of glyph of warding that is friends? So we're making this like an not an object-oriented programming language. We're making this like an objective-based encounter, where her objective is to slow down the adventurers as much as she can. So we're going with stuff like maybe that putrid breath that she has, where she can make it difficult terrain. The illusory the illusory terrain as well that is already difficult terrain. So just making it very hard for them to reach her, but they will do whatever they can within their power to get to her.
Absolutely. One thing that I would say would be incredibly fraught start to a battle. Say you're on a ship. We're going with the Siren. We're working two routes now. We're working sort of the upgraded Green Hag over here. We're working the Siren over here. What if she had an ability, right? You're on a boat. You're sailing. You don't see anything. Imagine starting the fight with the fighter compelled to run 20, 25, 30 feet towards the Siren and bolts straight off the ship into the water where all of the water-based mooks are hiding in the water. Imagine starting off a battle where your main DPS is thrown from the ship
Yeah.
and is in the water. What a crazy, like, that would be so terrifying to me. Just your fighter or your tank or your paladin, just boom off the ship. Now the first thing you got to do is save your paladin. That's the first thing you got to do.
And it's
Yeah.
funny,
I mean,
you saying that has already given me ideas to the other end, the Green Hag. Why not throw a lair action in there? We see it all the time that this place was built on a Native American burial ground. Why not make it her very shack and say a 90 or maybe a 60-foot radius around that shack is built on the bones of past hags from her bloodline, and she can now have lair actions. She gets a free mold earth, spike growth, things like that. And then obviously the players step outside that, they're fine. But if they're within 60 feet, a 60-foot radius of this hag burial ground where former hags of the bloodline of the coven are buried and their bones put back into nature, have given the ground a power that she can control, since it's hag's bones in the earth, now giving her control over that specific part of the earth. You can throw some now. You can throw some lair actions in there, and a bit of flavorful lore.
What about, hear me out. So for the Green Hag, kind of buffed up Green Hag, we have the kind of shield. What about for the Siren? We have temporary hit points because we're all about that illusory appearance. So why not have some kind of illusory hit points? Just something that will once every round give her more temporary hit points,
or even give her an ability that if it's advantage on a charmed enemy, disadvantage on an uncharmed enemy, like a draining kiss. If the enemy is charmed, they make a saving throw disadvantage, or they just automatically fail. And she will kiss them and literally drain them for their hit points, either giving her temporary hit points or just, if she's not at max, healing her for some damage. If it's an enemy that is not charmed by her, there's a straight roll for them.
Yeah.
So sick. With your Green Hag, Ali, your upgraded Green Hag, you've got this graveyard of like green hags that have died in the past that are buried there. What if she has like a legendary action where she can summon some mooks, and those mooks are zombie hags? I mean, zombies would be awesome. I love fighting zombies. They're
That
like my
would be
favorite thing.
really cool. Or even reflavor the name of spike growth to bone growth, and their former bones rise out the ground as sharp barbs.
So sick, yo. That's so sick. You
I
simply
like that a
love
lot.
to
I
see
like
it.
that a lot.
I think we need to cut this off before we go another hour, because we will talk
I
for an
think we
hour on this.
absolutely do. But you guys can expect to see a couple of new monsters that we have created in our feed. If you're listening to this, you already saw them, possibly, or not. We're not sure. Anyway, we've had a lovely time. Ali,
Mwah.
is that a little outro I see in your pockets?
On the horizon?
Yes, that is a little outro. We have been Saving Throws. Please leave a like, share the video, subscribe, or follow us on our various networks on Twitter at Throws Saving, our Facebook just Saving Throws, Instagram Saving Throws Insta, and our YouTube Saving Throws. Leave a like, follow, subscribe. It really helps us out. And if you don't do that, we will revivify your campaign's big bad. See you later, guys. We all love you.